Welcome to day 7 of 30 days of AL programming.
Hii ni Tech na Msangi ya jishinde.com.
Before you start AL programming, you need to set up your development environment, and this video will look at process versus Hyper-V isolation mode, and so that we are able to understand what's the difference between the two, between process and Hyper-V isolation mode. So this video is about Docker containers in Dynamics 365 Business Central, and Docker containers in Business Central, they are sandbox containers only, and they are not used to run your production. It is for testing or for test purposes only. And we are trying to see, so there are different isolation modes that you can run with Docker images. So this video is not about how to install Docker and maybe how to, after installing, I don't know, going to your environment there and switching to ideally once you install, it's usually written switch to Linux, switch to Windows containers, because by default it is run on Linux containers. And also again, for you to install Docker desktop on Windows, you need to turn on the Hyper-V in the turn on Windows features or off. So also it's not looking at that, but I'm just highlighting a few things that you might need if you haven't installed, because you can install Docker and put it to the test, but the video is on the different between process and Hyper-V isolation mode. So we do have a pictorial representation of the process isolation mode, and it looks like this. So you do have the OS and the containers running on top of the OS. So the OS shares the kernel with the containers, unlike the Hyper-V is where now the OS runs on its own kernel, but the virtual machine, there's a mini virtual Hyper-V that runs the containers on top of mini virtual machines. And definitely from that, then process is faster. Hyper-V is quite slow, but for Windows 10 and Windows 11, since mostly you are not only running Docker containers, you have applications, Word, you have your own programs that you run on a day-to-day basis. So to make sure that the OS is isolated properly from the day-to-day running of your OS, then Hyper-V is best for that case. But ideally, if the process is much faster than the Hyper-V, because a process isolation mode, picture this, you have uh, an apartment and the containers are the several houses in that particular apartment. So they're all hosted under one roof and they can access everything faster, maybe the water, um, the power and everything in the apartment. If you need to go to apartment number 5, apartment number 6, or you can easily navigate because you are under the same roof. But if you are in separated houses, maybe this within one compound, there are several houses. Before you go to another house, you find they have their own rules and information. And when you do the measure command on a very small nano server, Windows nano server, we can see that it takes up to one let me say 14-16 milliseconds on Hyper-V and 1638 on the process. It is much faster, and 1638 on Hyper-V. And if you look at Business Central, which has got like 8 GB and 10 GB, then this one will be a significant difference in terms of how fast your BC is able to start. Okay, any other thing? So when we are running the BC container helper, and we definitely usually have the isolation mode that is usually either process or hyper-v, and you're able to choose between process and hyper-v, and or you can say you allow the container helper to decide the isolation mode. So if you this is the first time you're trying Docker and a bit confused, just use the default, allow your OS to choose. If it's Linux, it will go for process. If it's Windows, it will go for hyper-v, without disrupting what is ongoing in your machine. But if you're pretty experienced, try the process, try to run it on the process isolation mode, especially if you don't have many containers for your Windows, then process isolation mode is faster. So which one is the best? So it depends on the scenario and what you're trying to run before you choose the best isolation mode. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss the next one.